Hey everybody, Coach Tim here from BioTRUST Nutrition. We're going to go live today. We're talking all things protein. I'm going to do a quick sound check. So, hey, see Melinda's here. Hello, Melinda. If you can give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can hear me, that'd be super awesome because we got a lot of ground to cover today, guys. Ton of ground. It's going to be a great one. Protein, one of my favorite topics to talk about. I could talk about this for a long time, and I will. Thanks, Melinda. So thank you, Shelly. Appreciate it. Guys, welcome to today's live event. We're talking Protein 101. I'm so excited to have you here. Whether you're a protein pro, just curious how to up your nutrition game, the session's for you. In my opinion, a higher protein diet is probably one of the lowest hanging fruit we can possibly reach for when it comes to living healthier, living longer, improving body composition, so on and so forth. So this is designed to be a 101 course on protein, but we might dip our toe into a little bit of 202. So anyway, we're going to be talking about what is protein, what does it do in the body, why do you need to eat protein, why is it so important for your health, especially as you age and for your waistline, how much protein you should be eating, what are the best ways to get it, what are the best sources, what are the best ways to get it in your diet, and of course, we'll be covering burning questions in the Q&A section at the end. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in there in the chat. My good friend and outstanding teammate, Coach Cristina, is hanging out with the crew in the chat, and she'll be collecting questions. I know she'll be helping out answering questions as we go. We'll try to save a few for the end. Like I said, there's a lot to cover here. I think I've got about 9 pages of notes. So bear with me. And if you can't stick with the whole time, this will be posted on our YouTube page so you can come back and dig in. Now, before we dig in, before we kick things off, I want to start with some encouragement. I know there's a lot of you out there who've been grinding at your goals. I know there's some of you out there who struggle to stay on the path. And I know that there's some of you out there who just feel downright defeated, deflated. I want to encourage you guys, okay, as Cameron Haynes would say, to keep hammering, keep showing up, do your best, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Now, if you need some inspiration, some bulletin board material, how about this quote from Jacob Riis, who was a journalist in the late 1800s and penned what is now referred to as the stone cutter's credo. He said, "When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stone cutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone before." So just a little inspiration for you. Stonecutter's Credo, Jacob Riis, R-I-I-S. If you need a little bulletin board material, remember, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just keep showing up. Do your best. Don't quit. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. Keep eating your protein. That you're gonna be. If you don't have some protein during this session, you're gonna be having some afterwards. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. Now, that being said, let's dive into our protein 101. Do you want to say hello? I see Daryl's out there. Dre. Let's see, Larry. Hello. Thank you guys for being here. I'm just gonna kind of roll through it though. So if I don't stop and welcome you, apologies. We just have a ton of ground to cover. I'm so appreciative that you're here. There's going to be a ton of value here. There's a lot to learn, a lot of reinforcement for those of you who are already eating your protein, and even more ammo to increase your protein intake for those of you who may not be. So what is protein? I want you to think of it as building material that your body uses to create and maintain pretty much everything. It's made up of smaller units. Protein is made up of smaller units called amino acids. And there are 20 of these amino acids. And they're like little Lego pieces. One of my boys, Brody, he's 4.5. He loves Legos. And whenever he's playing with Legos, I don't think about protein. But it's a good way to think about protein, is that you have these amino acids that make up protein that we get in our diet. And they're like little Lego pieces. And your body uses these different Lego pieces in various combinations to form different types of proteins in the body, each of which has specific jobs. Let's give some examples. So your body has structural proteins. Most people are familiar with collagen. Collagen protein is a structural protein. It's important for your skin, your tendons, and other connective tissues. Another structural protein is keratin, which gives strength to your hair, your skin, your nails. Then your body also creates another type of protein called enzymes. These are special proteins that do everything from help with breaking down the food we eat into usable parts to being involved in essentially every chemical reaction in the body to facilitate those processes. Um, Thousands of different reactions go on in the body every single day with the help of these protein based enzymes. Your body also has transport proteins. One of the best examples of a transport protein is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin carries oxygen throughout the body. Your body also makes antibodies out of these amino acids. So, antibodies are your body's own immune chemicals that help you stay healthy, right? Your body can also make hormones out of these the dietary proteins that you consume. A great example would be insulin. So insulin helps regulate your blood sugar levels. Without enough protein amino acids, your body wouldn't be able to have enough insulin, or GLP-1, which we're going to get into. Another thing that your body makes with protein, the dietary protein, is contractile protein. So this would be your muscle, the actin and myosin in your body. And these are basically what allow us to move, right? Bones, there's a protein component in your bones. The bottom line is you'll find protein throughout the body. It's everywhere. And in fact, besides water, your body's almost entirely protein. It's in your muscles, your skin, your hair, organs, tissues, immune system, and so much more. Now, why do we need to get protein from food? So here's why it's so important to get protein from your food. So I mentioned there's 20 amino acids, and out of those, 9 of those your body can't make on its own. Okay, these are called essential amino acids, and they need to come from the food you eat or from dietary supplements, which we'll get into. Without enough of these, your body wouldn't have the building blocks, those Legos, to create all the proteins, the peptides, and so on that are essential for things like muscle repair, immune function, hormone regulation, and so much more. Now, here's another key point that I want to emphasize. Your body doesn't store protein like it stores carbs and fats, which your body can store as glycogen and adipose tissue, respectively, for later use. Basically, any protein that's found in the body is already being put to use. There's no extra per se. Now, this is another fascinating point about why we need to get protein in our diet. Our body is constantly turning over protein. So, protein turnover refers to this continuous breakdown and synthesis of proteins within the body. So, it's not like your body just makes an enzyme one time and it's good to go for life, or your body just makes hemoglobin one time and it's good to go for life, or your body makes the hormone one time and you're set for life. Okay, this protein turnover is continuously happening. It's constantly renewing. Your body is you're gonna this it blows my mind every time I think about it or talk about it. So I want to highlight a few examples of how frequently the body replaces certain protein-based cells, tissues, and organs. Let's talk about the gut lining, for instance. The cells in your digestive tract have a very high turnover rate. They're completely renewed every 3 to 5 days. And this turnover is necessary because those cells are constantly exposed to harsh conditions like digestive enzymes, acids, and so on. And so every 3 to 5 days, you're getting a new digestive tract. Every 3 to 5 days. Crazy. How about your liver? I think we all know how important the liver is for metabolism, for detoxification. The protein content of your liver replaced every 10 days. New liver every 10 days. And that high turnover rate is so helpful because the liver is such a metabolically active organ. We need to have fresh liver every 10 days. It's mind blowing. And then we have Kathy. Good question. I'd like to get to that one towards the end there. So CP, maybe we can save that one. So your skin, it's our largest organ, undergoes constantly renewal. It's the epidermis, the outermost layer of the skin, replaced every 4 weeks. Every month, new skin. You're like a snake. Muscle proteins every 30 days. Every 30 days, we're replenishing, synthesizing new muscle proteins. How about red blood cells? Red blood cells every 120 days. So this constant turnover means our bodies have a continuous need for amino acids from dietary protein to support those processes. Without adequate protein, the body simply can't keep up with the repair and renewal of these tissues, which can compromise everything from muscle function to skin health and even gut integrity. And then another important point. So I mentioned that your body doesn't store protein, like extra protein, like it does carbs and fats. Well, in cases where we're not consuming adequate dietary protein, your body's going to get the protein from somewhere, right? I need that liver. I need to replenish that liver. I need to replenish that gut lining. I need to replenish the red blood cells. Your body's going to rob Peter to pay Paul, meaning that you're probably going to steal some protein, some amino acids from muscle tissue, for instance, in order to replace those more vital tissues. Excuse me. Bottom line, though, think of your body as a construction site. You need a steady supply of building materials, those amino acids, those Legos, if you will. Brody, my little guy, can't get enough Legos, never has enough Lego sets. We need to get one every time we go to the store. And we need those building materials to maintain and repair various structures in the body. And if you don't get enough protein, the construction slows down. You might start noticing things like muscle loss, fatigue, or even a weakened immune function, okay? So keep in mind, protein isn't just one thing. It's used to make all kinds of important substances in your body, from muscle fibers to hormones, enzymes, immune chemicals, and so much more. And that's why it's important to get so much protein from your diet. Now, next thing I want to talk about, what happens as you age, okay? So protein, as many of you heard, become even more important as you age, right? And many of you heard that your protein needs might even go up as you age. And that's not just some random recommendation. It's actually backed by science. So what's going on? Why does our need for protein increase with age? So first off, as we age, our bodies become less efficient at processing protein. That means the protein we eat isn't digested, absorbed, or utilized as effectively or as efficiently as when we were younger, okay? And as a result, our bodies have to work harder to break down and absorb the amino acids from food. And we need to consume more protein to get the same benefits we used to from relatively smaller, more moderate amounts, okay? Now, in addition to the digestion, absorption, utilization issue as we get older, there's also something called anabolic resistance. And it's basically a fancy term or a scientific term that means our muscles don't respond to protein, amino acids as well as they used to. So when we were younger, eating protein, a normal amount of protein triggered muscle protein synthesis, this process of building and repairing muscle tissue. But as we age, our muscles become more resistant to that same signal, to that same process, meaning that we need a higher dose of protein to stimulate muscle growth and repair. Without enough protein, we're staring at the face of one of the biggest giants, in my opinion. So without enough dietary protein, we're staring at one of the biggest giants that we face, in my opinion, as we get older, and that's age-related muscle loss. You've heard me beat this drum a lot, but it bears repetition. So one of the most significant changes that we face as we age is a loss of muscle mass and strength. This can start as early as our 30s, but it accelerates past the age of 50. So on average, once we hit our 30s, we're losing about 3 to 8% of our muscle mass per decade. And by the time we hit our 60s and 70s, we probably already lost 20, maybe even 30% of our muscle mass. And by our 80s, that just accelerates, okay? And that muscle loss isn't just about aesthetics, although muscle loss certainly impacts body composition. It affects metabolism, functional ability, balance, mobility, and strength. Speaking of which, along with muscle mass, muscle strength also declines significantly with age. You've heard me talk about this before probably as well. And research indicates that after the age of 50, muscle strength decreases by 2 to 4% each year. And that's going to lead to, and again, a number of different problems, including a drop in overall functionality. Makes it harder to perform daily tasks, things like climbing stairs, lifting groceries, getting out of a chair, playing with grandkids, so on and so forth, okay? And as we get older, this drop in strength just increases precipitously. And it's not just about muscle, okay? It's also protein. Remember, protein is about supporting other systems like our immune system, like our bone health as we get older. So as we get older, our immune system naturally becomes less effective. So getting enough high quality protein can help support immune function and recovery, right? And there's so much more. But to sum it up, okay, as we get older, we have increased protein needs because of issues with protein digestion, absorption, and utilization. All those things slowing down as we get older. We need to eat more. We also have this issue called anabolic resistance. There's also inflammaging. There's also a more sedentary lifestyle. All these things snowball to higher protein needs, which we'll get to. Don't worry. We're going to get to like how much. Okay, how much? Get to the point. But the point is that by increasing protein needs, again, we're going to get to that number here soon, and focusing on high quality sources, we can help combat these age-related challenges and maintain our strength, our muscle mass, our mobility, our overall health, our immune system function, so on and so forth. Now, before we get to some of those numbers. I also want to talk about why protein is so important for quality weight loss. Quality weight loss, okay? Let's talk about that, all right? When we say quality weight loss, myself, Coach Cristina, Coach Sue, we talk about quality weight loss all the time. We're talking about losing fat while maintaining lean muscle. And this is where protein really shines, guys, including the research backs this up. And I'm going to cite research from Dr. Don Layman, who's one of the leading experts in protein metabolism. But there's tons of people who've, I like that. All right, all right, all right. And hook 'em horns. Yes. So there's a ton of researchers in this protein metabolism space. I'm going to highlight some of the research from Dr. Don Layman today. And his studies show that higher protein diets not only lead to greater fat loss, but also help preserve muscle mass, even when calories are the same. Okay, let's repeat that. So when in controlled experiments, when you give participants a higher protein diet and you give participants a normal protein diet, even at the same calorie deficit, the people who eat higher protein diets lose more fat, maintain more muscle mass. In fact, Dr. Layman has stated that high protein diets are twice as effective at positively changing body composition and twice as effective at lowering body fat. I mean, that's if you're going to put in the elbow grease, you might as well support your efforts with the protein, right? If you're going to put in the work, might as well get twice the results. Okay, so this means that by prioritizing protein, not only lose fat more effectively and efficiently, but you also retain more lean muscle mass. And it's not just about dropping weight on the scale. This is what quality weight loss is about. It's not just about dropping weight on the scale. It's about reshaping your body in a healthier, more sustainable way. And this demonstrates that it's not just about calories in versus calories out. The quality of those calories matter, and protein makes a huge difference. Now, let's break down some of the ways that protein supports quality weight loss. First, let's talk about metabolic rate. Everybody likes to talk about metabolism, right? Protein has a higher thermic effect of feeding compared to carbs and fats. So what does that mean? Well, when you eat protein, your body actually burns more calories just digesting and processing. In fact, protein increased calorie burning by about 20 to 30% during digestion. Compare that to only 5 to 10% for carbs and 0 to 3% for fat. To put it more simply, this thermic effect uses up more calories, making protein an efficient way to boost metabolism even when you're resting. This metabolic boost can actually make a pretty significant difference when you're trying to lose weight, right? So you're talking about burning anywhere from 3 to 10 times as more calories with protein compared to carbs or fats. Now, another big piece of the puzzle here with higher protein diets is appetite control. You might have noticed that after eating a protein-rich meal, you feel full longer. That's because protein has such a strong effect on hunger hormones. It increases levels of hormones like peptide YY and everybody's favorite, GLP-1, which help you feel full and satisfied longer. Don't worry, we're going to come back to GLP-1 in just a moment. And also, protein helps reduce levels of the hunger hormone ghrelin. Okay, so eating more protein basically helps curb cravings, helps make it easier to stick to a calorie controlled diet without feeling deprived or feeling hungry all the time. And those are common challenges with weight loss. It's very difficult to maintain your diet when you're just feeling hungry all the time or you're feeling deprived, things like that. So higher protein diets seem to mitigate those effects more than just your typical diet. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the effect of higher protein diets on body composition. When you're trying to lose weight, it's pretty common to lose both fat and muscle. But what we see from Dr. Layman's work and many others is that higher protein diets, you're more likely to maintain, sometimes even build muscle mass and lose fat than compared with a normal diet. And this is so important because muscle isn't just about looking good, like looking good from a tone standpoint. It's also metabolically active, meaning that it burns more calories at rest. And the more muscle you have and the more muscle you maintain during weight loss, the more efficient your metabolism remains. And that makes it easier to maintain your weight loss and to sustain it. Okay. So excuse me for just a moment. It's another good question from Lori. We can answer that one at the end. So to sum it up, higher protein diets boost metabolism, increase metabolic rate through the thermic effect of feeding, help control appetite by influencing hunger hormones such as peptide YY, GLP-1. We're about to hit on that one real quick, and then ghrelin. And then higher protein diets also promote better body composition and quality weight loss. Okay. All right. So speaking of GLP-1, let's talk about GLP-1 a little bit. We've done a live event where we talked about GLP-1, where we talked about the power of protein and why it's so important. So you can go back and check that out. But for now, let's talk about if you are using a GLP-1 receptor agonist, if you're using GLP-1 drugs to help you achieve your weight loss goals, I need you to listen up, okay? Making sure you're getting ample protein in your diet may be one of the single most important things you can do to support your efforts. You see, one of the most common, but also one of the most detrimental unintended consequences of using GLP-1 drugs for weight loss is the loss of lean body mass, including muscle mass, okay? Studies show that up to 40 to 60% of the weight loss experienced while using GLP-1 receptor agonists can come from lean body mass, not fat mass. Okay, so like talking about half the weight you lose might be lean body mass. And while it might feel like the scale's moving in the right direction, losing muscle mass can have some serious long-term consequences. And let's talk about why. So reduced metabolic rate. Muscle is metabolically active, meaning it burns more calories even when you're at rest. And if you lose muscle, your resting metabolic rate can decrease, making it more likely that you're going to regain weight in the future. When we lose muscle, we're also at a risk of decreased strength and functionality. Lean muscle is critical for physical strength, balance, overall functionality. Losing muscle leads to decreased physical performance and increased risk of injury, things like that, especially as you age. All right. This can also impact your bone health. So it's so critical for people who are using GLP-1 drugs to be proactive about maintaining their lean body mass. And that's where protein comes in. You want to ensure that you're eating enough high quality protein. Again, we're going to get to that in just a moment. How much is that? By consuming enough high quality protein, you can help counteract muscle loss, protect your metabolism, your strength, your overall health, especially when you pair protein intake with resistance training or strength building exercises, which are further going to support. Those two tools in the toolbox, protein, strength training, those are your strongest, most effective tools for maintaining muscle when you're on GLP-1 drugs, when you're trying to lose weight, when you're getting older. Okay, so protein and strength training, they're like, as Forrest Gump would say, peas and carrots, right? Is that what it is? Jeez. That's so funny. Okay. So now let's talk about how much protein you actually need. All right. We've covered why protein is important for weight loss, for healthy aging, if you're taking GLP-1 drugs, and just in general, why protein is so important. But you probably wondered at this point, like how much protein, come on, Coach Tim, how much protein do you actually need to get those benefits? I want to break it down in two key areas that we've already been talking about. The longevity, healthy aging aspect, how much as we get older, and weight management. Really, it's a very similar conversation. Very similar conversation. Now, as we age, I talked about this already, our protein needs increase significantly to help preserve muscle mass and maintain overall functionality. And again, I'm going to beat the drum again, but age-related muscle loss can begin as early as our 30s, accelerates after our 50s. We talk about losing 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every decade after the age of 30, and that just accelerates to our 50s and 60s, and so on. Now, to combat these changes, protein experts like Dr. Don Layman, his research, and so many others, the recommendation is somewhere in the neighborhood of one. Good question, Audrey. We're going to get to that one too. 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so American friends, let's round that off to around 0.75 grams per pound, okay? Which, if I had to paint with a broad stroke brush, I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 to 130 grams of protein per day for most adults. But if you want to personalize it, just multiply your body weight by 0.7, 0.75. Okay. That amount not only helps maintain muscle mass, but also supports immune function and all those other body functions that we talked about before. Okay. To maximize these benefits, the research does suggest it's important to distribute protein intake throughout the day. So we want to target somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal to effectively stimulate muscle protein synthesis and counteract that anabolic resistance and the digestion, absorption issues that we talked about. Okay. So 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal, 120 plus grams of protein per day. Okay. By meeting those targets and spreading them across the meals, you're going to protect muscle mass, maintain strength, and support overall longevity and healthy aging. Okay, so that's the bottom line right there. Now, when it comes to weight management, similar target. We see somewhere in that neighborhood of 1.6 to even 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram. So now we're talking about zero point 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight if our goal is that quality weight loss. Okay, so we can still use the same recommendation. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 grams per day, can go all the way up to 1 gram per pound of body weight per day. And I know that question comes up, can you do too much? I haven't seen otherwise healthy adults overdo it. Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment, but I don't think that that's a problem, right? And again, spreading the protein intake out across multiple meals seems to be the best practice, right? So 30 to 50 grams per meal seems to be optimal for maintaining muscle mass, maximizing fat loss with calorie controlled diets. Okay, perfect. So now let's talk about how and where to get your protein. So we've talked about how much protein you need, why it's essential for healthy aging, weight management, even for folks who are using GLP-1 drugs. Let's dive into how to hit those protein targets, okay? It's not just about getting enough protein. It's about choosing the right types of protein, specifically high quality protein sources, that provide all the essential amino acids and are easily digested and absorbed. Okay, so high quality, highly bioavailable protein sources. Why is that important? Quality matters. Quality matters. Okay, high quality proteins, particularly, I'm going to go out there and say this. I know there was a question from Lori already about plant protein, particularly of animal derived protein sources, because there are they're so rich in essential amino acids that your body needs to build and repair things like muscle. Um, plant foods in general are lacking one or more essential amino acids. That doesn't mean you can't get there with plant-based diet or plant-based proteins, things like that. And we'll talk about, I will give you a recommendation for a plant-based protein. But in general, if you're not consuming foods of animal origin, it's going to be very challenging to get these higher protein targets without just simply overeating, because plant-based foods are generally not protein rich or as protein rich as animal-based foods. So they generally, along for the ride, come more calories, more carbs, more fats to get to a similar level of protein, and just a whole lot of food. So animal-based proteins are considered complete proteins, meaning they contain all 9 essential amino acids, generally in the best proportions. Another reason to prioritize animal proteins is because of their high digestibility and bioavailability. That means that your body can break down and absorb these proteins more efficiently. These would be proteins like milk-based proteins, egg-based proteins, beef, things like that. We'll get into sources in just a moment as well. But there's a scale called the protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. There's also the digestible indispensable amino acid score. These are measures of protein qualities, and animal proteins always come out higher than plant-based proteins for the most part. And this just makes them superior choices for the types of things that we're talking about, whether that's maintaining muscle, supporting overall health, and so on and so forth, especially as we get older. Okay. Now let's talk about the best protein sources. So to hit your protein targets, my encouragement is to focus on incorporating these types of high quality animal protein sources in your meals. So lean meats, basically leaner meats, more efficient source of protein: chicken, turkey, beef. If you eat pork, that's fine too. But those types of things, of course, wild game, deer, elk, whatever floats your boat there. Those things all fit into this bucket as well. Fish and seafood, of course, are great examples: salmon, tuna, oysters, shrimp. Not only are those seafood sources great sources of protein, but they generally have some really, really good micronutrient properties, as does beef. Okay, so not only does beef and these various seafood sources are not only they great sources of protein, but they generally come along with a ton of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients: creatine, carnitine, things like that our body can use for a variety of reasons. Eggs are another nutrient dense source. We love eggs. but you got to know your body, right? You got to know your body. So eggs are a good source of protein. Dairy products, if you can tolerate dairy, and milk, if you can consume milk, kefir, Greek yogurt, cheeses, things like that. All those things can be included as good protein sources. They also, if they're fermented properly, they can be good sources of probiotics. So, now we're talking about things that are not only good sources of protein, but also bring some great nutrients along the ride. Guys, it's complete. Thank you all for being here. I just want to stop and say thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you guys. We're 30 minutes in. We've covered a ton of ground in this Protein 101 course. Don't worry if you're just showing up now. You can always replay this. All right. So the goal was to just dig right in, kind of power through it, and cover the topics of what is protein, what does it do in the body, why do we need more as we age, why do we need more as for trying to lose weight, where do we get protein, how much do we need, so on and forth. So we covered a lot of territory. We're only 30 minutes in, so you go back and watch this, no problem. All right. Protein supplements. I got to talk about protein supplements because it can be a challenge to consume that much protein through whole food sources, right? We're talking about 125, 150 grams of protein per day. Protein supplements become super duper handy. Okay. Some of the most popular protein supplements, whey protein is probably the most popular, the best research protein supplement out there. It's rapidly absorbed. It's ideal for workout nutrition. It's great for morning time, so on and so forth. Now, of course, I've got some whey protein that I want to show you. So BioTRUST Low Carb Light. BioTRUST Low Carb Light comes in a number of different flavors. I've got the vanilla here. We've also got chocolate. We've got unflavored. This camera's kind of funny. It's backwards. We've got chocolate, unflavored. We've got vanilla. We've got strawberries and cream. We've got an orange cream. Tons of great flavors. So this is whey protein. Again, application-wise, whey protein perfectly fine in the morning. It's that's a good question, John. Perfectly good around workout time. There's not really a wrong time to consume whey protein, but it's probably the most researched. Very, very great amino acid profile. Super duper helpful for building, maintaining muscle, whether it's age-related issues or whether it's weight management-related issues that we're talking about. Okay, another important type of protein. Let's put it this way: milk protein. Milk is made of two proteins essentially. There's a number of different things underneath these umbrellas, but two main umbrellas. Okay, we've got whey protein. About 20% of milk is whey protein, and then the other 80% is casein protein. So whereas whey is a very fast digesting, rapidly digesting, highly anabolic muscle building type of protein, casein is more of a slow digesting. It kind of forms this gel in the stomach with a slow release of amino acids. This makes it a very ideal protein for if you're going longer periods of time without eating, such as before bed. Casein, there's some good research on casein protein before bed. I want to show you my personal BioTRUST favorite protein, and that is low carb multi-protein, also known as BioTRUST low carb. This is vanilla. We've got it in a number of different flavors. My personal favorite, chocolate peanut butter. And we've got milk chocolate. We've got salted caramel. We've got cafe mocha. We got some really good flavors here as well. Strawberry banana. This is a combination, as the name implies, multi-protein. So it's got whey protein, it's got casein protein, it's got milk protein. So it's got a nice balance of protein. It's great like as a meal replacement. Again, if you're going longer periods of time, it's really, really good if you like a thicker, you like a little bit more substance to your protein. It mixes up nice and thick. It's fantastic for baking. I make all kinds of different recipes. You can mix it in oatmeal. You can mix it in yogurt. I make protein bites with it, little protein bars, all kinds of things. It's a fantastic protein to make, baked goods with as well. So BioTRUST low carb, also a good nighttime protein, especially if you have those cravings, those sweet cravings at nighttime. BioTRUST low carb is a great option. Now, collagen protein. Okay, so we've got collagen protein as well. So this is BioTRUST Aegis Multi-Collagen. This is vanilla. This comes in chocolate, unflavored. Unflavored is the most popular. People just mix it right in their coffee. So collagen protein. is another great protein. Collagen proteins, particularly collagen peptides, goes beyond amino acids. So I've talked a lot about dietary protein, why it's important to supply these amino acids. Collagen peptides, they are signaling molecules. So not only is collagen providing building blocks for your body to make proteins, like the collagen protein in your skin and your joints, so on and so forth, it's actually signaling the body to make those proteins. Okay, so collagen peptides, that's a unique source of protein. So that's a great protein. As we also see that there's body composition benefits to collagen protein. My general recommendation for most people is somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 grams of the Aegis multi collagen per day for overall joint health, skin health, and body composition. And that would be separate from what you might get from BioTRUST low carb or low carb light. So that just because there's some added benefits to the collagen peptides. Okay, game changer for sure. Now, I don't have it with me, and I apologize, but for you plant-based folks out there, even for folks who are looking for plant-based proteins, BioTRUST also has a plant-based protein, and it is phenomenal. The reason I don't have it here is because I use it. I use it pretty rapidly, and we have a vanilla caramel and a chocolate brownie flavor in the BioTRUST plant protein, and it's a combination of proteins to help balance out that amino acid profile, and it's actually beefed up, pun intended, yeah, pun intended, beefed up with digestive enzymes to help with digestibility with absorption. So it's a fantastic protein. It tastes amazing. It mixes up thick like that BioTRUST multi-protein. So that's another option for you plant-based eaters. That's my top recommendation. It's the only recommendation I can give for a plant-based protein because great amino acid profile, digestive enzymes, tastes amazing, mixes up smooth as can be, tastes great. It's fantastic. Okay. So we covered a ton of ground here, right? We talked about, and I'm not just saying just supplements, that's all you should do. But when we're talking about optimizing protein intake, trying to get that 0.75 to even maybe 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 to 150, maybe even 200 grams of protein for some people, protein supplements become critical, especially when we're talking about, trying to get 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. All right. So strategically using protein supplements, I think it becomes, combined with these whole food protein sources, I think it's manageable to hit these protein targets on a daily basis to support longevity, to support quality weight loss, to support your overall muscle health, to combat age-related muscle loss, things like that as we get older. Now, I'm good I think I've covered all the ground that I wanted to cover in the 101. Did it in 38 minutes or so. Not too bad. We covered a ton of ground here. Let's go ahead and take some Q&A. So, Audrey, yours is top of mind here just because you put it in there. Should we target actual weight or goal weight? So that's a super question. And generally speaking, Audrey, if we're going to go with the 0.7 or 0.75 recommendation, 0.75 grams per pound of body weight per day, I think actual weight is fine. Excuse me. I would say that if you have more than 20 pounds to lose, then probably go with the goal weight. Okay. Ideally, in an ideal world, we'd have a good like DEXA body composition scan, and we would do 1 gram per pound of lean mass per day. It gets a little nuanced. We're trying to paint a picture here with a very broad brush. So in an ideal world, everyone would do their body composition. We'd find out how much lean mass you have, and we'd support that lean mass with 1 gram of protein per pound or per pound of lean mass per day. We don't have that data for everyone, so it's probably safe to say 0.75 grams per pound of body weight per day is a good target. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 120, 130 grams for a lot of people. If you've got more than 20 pounds to lose, let's just base the 0.75 off your target weight. Okay. Let's see. Coach CP, if you want to, let's see, put in any questions here, we can do that. I'm trying to go back and check it out. Good point there, Coach CP. Yeah, the distributing protein intake evenly throughout the day is important. I would say, yeah, you said 20 to 30 grams, perfectly fine. Might even go up to 50, 30 to 50 grams. I'd say 30 grams is a good target. Okay. If you get much lower than that, you might be missing out on optimizing muscle protein synthesis. So let's shoot for a minimum of 30. All right. Let's see. I thought we saw some more questions. Now I can scroll back up there. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Audrey, I know you had a good question up here. There's so many good questions. Can you eat too much protein? That's what Audrey said. Okay. Rarely is this the case. For an otherwise healthy individual, I don't think we have any concerns with eating too much protein. Okay. I've gone personally as high as 2 grams per pound of body weight per day. There's research that goes up to 2 grams per pound of body weight per day for several months. No negative impact on any biomarkers or anything like that, kidney function, liver function, um, cardiovascular biomarkers. So we don't see any issues with any biomarkers over even extended periods of time, some like 6 months or so. And that's at 2 grams per pound of body. That's excessive, in my opinion. I don't think you need that much. I don't think you need to go much higher than 1 gram per pound unless you're training very, very hard, combined with the reduced calorie diet. Then we might go a little bit higher. But I think 1 gram per pound of body weight is probably a ceiling. I don't think there's any health issues that you need to be concerned with if you're an otherwise healthy individual. At some point, protein just becomes a little bit more expensive. And so your body will basically can convert, if there's too much of it, it can convert that protein into a carbohydrate type of molecule or a fat and use it for other purposes. It's a very expensive process for the body to do that. It doesn't do it that much, but it will do it as needed. Okay. So I don't think it's possible to eat too much protein, but at some point, it's not the most efficient thing to do. Right. So if you're in that 0.75 to 1 gram per pound of body weight per day, Audrey, I don't think you need to worry about it. Okay. Let's see. Keith, great question. At age 75, can I slow down my muscle loss with protein? Yes, absolutely. It does seem like higher protein diets, even at that age, Keith, we see better maintenance of muscle mass. But again, like we talked about, higher protein intake with age is important due to things like digestion, protein utilization, anabolic resistance, so on and so forth. Now, if I might suggest, Keith, if you want to swing the odds further in your favor, you got to do some kind of strength training. Strength training is going to be probably the most powerful tool to slow down muscle loss, right? And you combine protein with the resistance training, you got it going on, my friend. You'll be in good shape. Now, I would add ageless muscle to the equation as well. With the MyHMB here, combined with the protein, combined with the resistance training, I think you would be doing everything you possibly can, the creatine in there as well, to swing the odds in your favor. That would be kind of my 3-headed monster, if you will, Keith. But yes, I don't have any question in my mind that if you're in that 0.75 to 1 gram per pound of body weight per day of protein, combined with 2-3 days of resistance training, combined with ageless muscle, if you want to add that to the equation, you're going to be in good shape, my friend. You're going to be in good shape. Let's see. Do we have some others in here? Coach Cristina, guys, make sure you check out the chat. Coach Cristina has done a super duper job of adding some links here for some of the questions. So I might, those go in even further depth. For instance, on the overeating protein question, there's a great link there. Shelly asked, do egg whites or whole eggs work better? It's a good question, Shelly. I'm not exactly sure what we mean by working better, but I can make some assumptions there. Most of the protein is in eggs is in the whites. So from a protein efficiency standpoint, egg whites are going to be great, but there's a ton of nutrients in the whole egg in the yolk as well. And so while I've talked about protein sources or foods that are rich in proteins and amino acids, we also want to look at these foods as what else they can deliver, right? So I talked about fish and seafood deliver a ton of other nutrients. Some nutrients like omega-3s and zinc and things like that, that are harder to get from other foods. We also have to consider eggs for that purpose. The yolk has more vitamins, that has carotenoids in it, has healthy fats in there, some of the omega-3s. So we don't want to dismiss all the eggs, but if we want to focus on getting a little bit more protein, getting using eggs as a more efficient source of protein, then maybe we're doing, a few whites with a couple whole eggs or something like that. But I do think that the whole egg is, if you can consume the whole egg, that you should, at least a few of them. Okay. Because like I said, there's some benefits there. And in general, the idea that whole eggs are bad for you, it doesn't seem to be borne out that way. There may be some certain populations who need to watch those whole eggs, but certainly not from a cholesterol standpoint. I think that's been largely dismissed. Speaking of cholesterol, Joan says, how do we balance protein with balancing LDL and HDL levels? Good question, Joan. We probably spent a lot of time on this one. I think there's a common misconception that, higher protein foods, or protein in general, is going to have a negative impact on these biomarkers. Now, certainly within certain populations, certain genetically predisposed folks, saturated fats may have an unfavorable impact on things like cholesterol levels and triglycerides. So I don't want to dismiss that. But in general, the proteins or protein-rich foods are not going to have as much of a negative impact on those variables as you might think. In fact, when we look at Dr. Lehman's research, for instance, on higher protein diets, we tend to see better improvements in cardiovascular biomarkers with higher protein diets than we do with normal protein diets or lower protein diets. So I think we could probably dive into this a little bit further. But in general, I think like I said, there's some genetic predisposition for some people to experience higher LDL cholesterol, for instance, with a higher saturated fat diet. So we might if you're worried about this, let's put it this way, Joan, if you're worried about your cardiovascular biomarkers without getting too thick in the weeds, then maybe you can focus on leaner protein sources with lower saturated fat content. Okay. Because maybe you're genetically predisposed, like I talked about. And that would be, one way to balance the protein intake with your cardiovascular biomarkers. So in this case, protein supplements like the BioTRUST Low Carb Light, BioTRUST Low Carb Multi Protein, Aegis Multi Collagen, things like that. There's no saturated fat or minimal negligible amount in those, so that wouldn't be a concern. Or the leaner cuts of meat that we talked about, or the seafood, things like that. Maybe you're just watching out for higher fat cuts of meat, whole fat dairy, which I think is great overall, but maybe in someone's situation who's concerned about saturated fats and the potential impact on cardiovascular biomarkers, maybe not the case. Again, if we looked at the research, we might actually see that high fat dairy actually has a favorable impact. But I want to be sensitive to your question here, and just, again, painting with a broad brush and speaking very generally, that would probably be the way that I would look at that. I hope that's helpful, John. Okay, I see Lori has a question here. Hopefully we're doing okay on time here, guys. It says, I'm 63 and I've been consuming BioTRUST low carb plant. Perhaps I need to switch to whey in order to gain more muscle. Maybe, Lori, I think we also just need to look at total protein intake, right? So I think BioTRUST low carb plant can be very supportive of maintaining muscle. But from an efficiency standpoint, BioTRUST, if you don't have an intolerance to whey, if you can consume whey, I think it's a great choice. It's going to be a more efficient source of protein, meaning that you're going to get 20 grams of protein for 100 calories versus 20 grams of protein for 150 calories, and that way you can ramp up to 30 grams of protein with BioTRUST Low Carb Light. So to kind of recap, I'm talking about trying to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 grams of protein per feeding opportunity per meal, and a total of somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 ish grams of protein per day, right? So I think one thing you might do just for a week or two is track your total protein intake. You don't have to count all your calories or anything like that, but maybe track your protein intake and just see where you're at. And that can give us an indication if maybe we need to ramp up the amount of low carb plant or supplement that with low carb light. Okay. So again, kind of some of the take home points: 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal, 125 ish or more grams of protein per day, roughly 0.75 to 1 gram per pound of body weight per day. Let's see. Where else? Oh, good job. Coach CP shared a link there for Shelly and the egg debate. Got a question for Don. With the collagen with MCT, is this good for protein? Don, you can use the keto ageless multi-collagen, no problem. I think collagen is a good, our multi-collagen is a nice source of protein. It has, in general, collagen protein is considered an incomplete source of protein because it lacks the essential amino acid tryptophan. We fortify or beef up, as I've said before, our ageless multi-collagen with tryptophan, so it has that full essential amino acid profile. So it generally could be considered a complete protein. We see that in the context of eating enough protein overall, I think it's fine. If you have some of these plant-based sources or collagen or something like that may not be a complete source of protein, as long as you're consuming enough essential amino acids throughout the day. All right. So you can absolutely count ageless multi-collagen, keto collagen towards your goals or towards your protein targets for the day. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's perfectly fine. I just want to reiterate that generally speaking, our target is probably still going to be around 30 grams of protein per meal, and that 125-ish grams of protein per day. Now, I know that collagen may be the exception here because it's not just a source of protein, it's also a source of information. I know that sounds really, really strange, but like I talked about before, these collagen peptides are not just supplying amino acids, it's not just a building block. It's not just a source of building blocks, but also a source of information, a source of a signaling molecule. These peptides are basically turning on a switch in the body to tell the body to make more collagen. In that sense, it's almost like, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it's almost like a hormone, like a peptide hormone that would tell the body to do something. That's what collagen peptides are doing. So we can view that through a slightly different lens, meaning that, oh man, I'm only getting 10 grams of collagen, so this doesn't count, or I'm not doing what Coach Tim said. The collagen peptides are still serving a very important function. So if you're putting a scoop of ageless multi-collagen or keto collagen in your coffee, you can count that protein. It's still doing what it's supposed to do. In the research, we see that collagen does a great job of improving skin health and a variety of different skin health markers, as well as supporting joint health and joint recovery, and even body composition at doses ranging from as low as 5 grams at a time to up to 20 grams. So 10 grams of collagen peptides from BioTRUST ageless multi-collagen at one time is perfectly fine. I know that's kind of outside the rules that I'm trying to give you of the 30 grams ish per meal, 125 grams per day, but there's always exceptions. Okay. There's always exceptions. I'm notorious for saying it depends. And this is one of those, it depends moments. So keep using your collagen. It counts. It's good. Yes. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? I think we answered that one, Audrey. Is there any other question, bro? Oh, I see Brian. My screen froze up a little bit there. Let's see. My doctor acts like over 60 to 70 grams is too much. Yeah, she's behind the times. No question. You can put that on the record. Have her give me a call. Yes, collagen peptides can also help with bones. Joan and Brian. Hey, Brian, good to see you here. Let's see. Why does protein absorption matter? For the BioTRUST protein has better than most, but I'm not sure why that matters. Good question. So protein, we'll try to make this not too complicated, but your body basically takes these protein molecules in the stomach, starts to digest them. So it throws digestive enzymes at them, breaks the protein, that nice little Lego building, into its individual Lego blocks. Okay, so these Lego blocks are just floating around in the digestive tract. Well, that's not necessarily where we need them. We need them to go to the muscles. We need them to go so on and so forth to do all these different functions in the body. And so we need to pull them into the system. We need to absorb them into the circulation, going through the liver and then ultimately in the bloodstream. And so absorption is the next step in the process. So when we think about actually putting to use these building blocks, let's just narrow it down to 3 steps. We have to digest them. We have to break them down into usable pieces. Then we have to absorb them. We have to absorb those usable pieces into our circulation, and then we have to utilize them. We have to put them to work. Okay. So great if you can digest them. Now we already know there's issues with digestion. That's why we're including digestive enzymes. Digestion is the first key or first step in the process to actually make things more absorbable. If we're not digesting things properly, it's going to be very difficult to absorb them and then put them to use. And so digestion, very important. And then we move to absorption, but really absorption is dependent on digestion. Okay. So that's why we are improving the absorption by improving the digestibility of the proteins. And that's why it's so important, because if we're not digesting, then we can't absorb. And if we can't absorb, we can't utilize. And so that's kind of the steps in the process. So really absorption is affected by digestibility, which we're improving with digestive enzymes. We're improving with the quality of protein and so on. And so it really, really matters. Really, at the end of the day, Brian, if you're spending money on these proteins, you want to be able to use them. And in order to use them, we need to digest them and give the body a chance to put them into use. So that's where we're going. Shelly, I hope that helps, Brian. Great question. I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes, and I think I can get to a couple more of these questions. Let's see. Are protein bars worth the money? Shelly, protein bars can be convenient. I've already talked about like other protein sources and what else is along for the ride. Like in the case of beef, there's other nutrients. In case of seafood, there's other nutrients. Eggs, there's other nutrients. Dairy, there's other nutrients. We're not just getting protein, but there's these other great things along for the ride. With protein bars, a lot of times there's other things we might not be interested in along for the ride. And we'd have to just look at a protein efficiency standpoint. So with BioTRUST Low Carb Light, think about this. You can get 20 grams of protein for 100 calories, right? With a protein bar, you might be getting 15, maybe 20 grams of protein for 200 calories. So twice the number of calories for about the same amount of protein. And then you're also maybe not getting as much vitamins, minerals, probiotics as you might get from some of these other whole food sources, along with some other stuff. I mean, if you've ever looked at the ingredient list, there's some stuff in there that you might not be aware of, or, just additives, right? Now, having said that, can some protein bars here and there be helpful? Yes, they can be convenient. They can be useful. They can be tasty. I'm not going to say that I don't ever use them. I use them from time to time. It's kind of like a treat. So I think they can be used and be okay. We want to look at the protein source. We want to look what's along for the ride. We want to look at the protein efficiency, things like that. I hope that's helpful, Shelly. Let's see. When losing weight, what is the best protein to use? Natural from food or supplements? I think we covered that. So I think it's a combination of both. Again, we're going to get some other potential beneficial nutrients from whole food sources. Supplements can be super helpful. There's many studies that have looked at protein supplements in the context of weight management, showing benefits there. So I think personally, a combination of the two is your best bet. If you can get there through whole foods, awesome. It's very challenging to get to that 0.75, 1 gram per pound of body weight consistently, to get to that 30 gram threshold per meal consistently with whole foods. And so I think it's perfectly fine to use protein supplements. In fact, I'd consider a protein supplement foundational for most people. Let's see. You know what? There was a question. Let's see. Yes, Kathy, you had a question. Thank you so much. This is going to be the last question, if I can get back to it, because I think it's very important. Kathy said, I love your protein, but had to quit using it when I learned it had erythritol in it. Are you considering making a version without erythritol? It's supposed to be avoided with cardiac issues. So great question. Kathy, I want you to email me at tskwiyat@wellbeam.com. So I have your email, because I'll give you some additional written information. But I know that there's some research out there that has looked at erythritol. And the reason I want you to email me, Kathy, is because I have the numbers written down and I don't know them off the top of my head right now. But if I'm recalling correctly, the research that is looking at erythritol and showing potential issues with, cardiovascular uh, variables per se was a significant amount of erythritol. Again, I don't want to butcher the numbers because I don't know it off the top of my head, but if I'm remembering correctly, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of like gram quantities, 10 grams, maybe something more. Just as a point of reference, again, Kathy, I apologize. I'm kind of just going off the top of my head with the numbers here. I think there's maybe 200 milligrams of erythritol in a serving of BioTRUST protein, meaning that we're talking about hundreds times more erythritol in the studies than you would be exposed to in a BioTRUST protein. Okay, so it's not even close. The order of magnitude is not even close. I also want to point out it's basically irrelevant in my opinion. All right, as far as the amounts, where it's just, again, that's why I want you to email me, Kathy, because I want to give you the exact numbers so that you can digest it, maybe talk it over with your doctor. But we're not even talking about the same playing field. Okay, that's number one. Number two is I know that the most recent research started to show some, looking more like in a randomized controlled trial situation where there might be some causation. But up to this point, much of the argument behind removing erythritol has been based on associative data, potentially animal data. For instance, some of the previous studies were looking at like higher levels of blood erythritol being associated with increased cardiovascular risk factors. Okay. Now, association is an important part of the scientific process, but it doesn't tell us about causation. And when you look a little bit further, what you see is that folks who have higher levels of blood erythritol in these studies also had metabolic dysfunction. And again, not to get too thick into the weeds, but folks who have metabolic dysfunction, you can, here, let me put it this way. Your body can make erythritol on its own. And when you have metabolic dysfunction, you tend to make more erythritol. And so what we were seeing was that these people who had higher levels of blood erythritol were actually making more erythritol. They weren't necessarily consuming more erythritol in their diets. They were making more erythritol as a result of the metabolic dysfunction that was going on in their body as a result of, say, something like type 2 diabetes or something like that. And all that married together was also related to a higher cardiovascular risk. So actually, those studies didn't give us any indication that higher erythritol consumption actually increased cardiovascular risk, but rather folks who had metabolic dysfunction are, as we already know, at a higher risk for cardiovascular risk. And they just so happen to have higher levels of erythritol because of the same underlying metabolic dysfunction. I hope that's helpful, Kathy. But kind of my personal takeaway is that at this stage in the game, I personally, for an otherwise healthy individual, don't have any concern for people consuming low to moderate amounts of erythritol in their diet. I don't think that's the problem. Especially again, when we're talking about like the order of magnitude is ginormous in some of these studies compared to what we're actually getting. If we're talking about 10,000 milligrams versus 200 milligrams, it's a drop in the bucket, right? So just wanted to touch base on that. And again, if you email me, Kathy, first initial T, last name Skiat, SKWIAT at Wellbeam, I can share what I've written on the topic, and maybe it will be formulated a little bit more coherently, but hopefully, at least for now, like on this format, that was acceptable. And maybe alleviated concerns, or at least got you thinking a little bit differently than you had been. So I hope that's helpful. It was a super duper question, Kathy. Again, my personal opinion, I have zero concern about any of these BioTRUST products and the erythritol content for anyone who might be concerned about the erythritol. So hope that's helpful, guys. We've gone over an hour again. Hope it's helpful. We covered a ton of ground in the first 38 40 minutes was our protein 101. We spent the last 25 minutes talking Q&A. So hope you guys got some value out of this. If you didn't get any value out of anything I said, at least you get some value out of the coupon code that Coach Cristina shared. I think it was like a 50% off coupon code. Amazing to get these protein products. Again, we've got BioTRUST low carb. Camera is killing me. BioTRUST low carb multi-protein. That's your blend of whey protein, casein protein, milk protein. It's good for like a meal replacement. It's good for nighttime. It's good for baking. Then we've got Aegis multi-collagen. So this is the top selling product. People love mixing in their coffee. And then we've got BioTRUST low carb light. So this would be just a whey protein. This is a very calorie conscious protein. So 20 grams of protein per 100 calories or so. So anyone who's focused on weight management, it's a really good way to get protein without too many calories. Tastes amazing. It's great for supporting your workouts, for breakfast, for fast digesting protein. So we've got those. And then also not pictured here is the plant protein, which is delicious, best plant protein on the planet, in my opinion. And I have tried quite a few. I'm not just saying that. I have tried quite a few, but it's amazing. So I hope you guys got some value. I want to give a nod again, internet high five to Coach CP, Coach Cristina, who was quite the symphony orchestra in the chat. She did an amazing job as always. There's a ton of great links in the chat, so make sure you go through that. If you had a question that maybe I didn't get to, or even if I did answer your question, Coach Cristina probably answered it better with the links that she shared. But she's a superstar. She's all over it. We appreciate you, Cristina. Thank you guys all for being here. You guys are awesome. Go back and watch this. We'll be posted on the page. If you didn't get to see the beginning, there's some good stuff there, I think at least. So, all right, take care, guys. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.